programs and fellow Trekkies, and welcome to another tier list video. This one brought to you by my good friend Knight Halcyon, who decided to gift me 7 subs. He essentially paid me to do this video and give my hot takes on the Star Trek antagonists and villains. My friend group loved my last tier list, the series tier list, so much that they wanted to know my opinions on a lot of the villains and antagonists of the Star Trek mythos. So I gathered 70 of different villains, antagonists from across the Star Trek franchise. You'd have thought I'd try to stick to 60, but it turns out I liked or noted so many of them that I just couldn't resist. So yeah, we've got 70. The number was a little higher, but I was like, nope, we got to take it down a little bit. So let's go ahead. I'm going to lay the ground rules for this tier list. Personally, to me, again, this is just strictly my opinion, they have to be noteworthy. That's why I picked them out for good or bad reasons. These are ones that stuck out to me in my head. I used the Star Trek villain, the villains Wikipedia, not Star Trek villains, the villains Wikipedia that had a whole list of them. And it was able to help me pick out, like, yep, I remember you, remember you, remember you, remember you, remember you, and like, ooh, remember you. So some of them for good reasons, some of them for bad or not so good reasons. And that helped me at least get this list together. And there was a lot. Some of these are one episode villains, but at the same time, like, they stood out for a reason. I did not pick a race per se. There's one exception on the list, and we'll get to it when we get to it. So, like, if it's a noteworthy Klingon, a noteworthy Romulan, noteworthy Changeling, they stood out. I did not want to classify a race. So I wanted to be specific with these antagonists. So I'm going by series order. That way, you know, we can like look back and whatnot is a way. I just figured chronologically it helps also. It helps me too with my brain. So we are starting off with the original antagonist from the second pilot of the original series where no man has gone before, Gary Mitchell. The navigator, helmsman of the Enterprise under Captain Kirk, good friend of Captain Kirk from way back in the Academy, was uplifted by the energies of the galactic barrier at the edge of the Milky Way galaxy. Soon cast off his humanity, or gradually casted off his humanity, saw himself as a superior being until he got into a fight with Kirk, and a fellow uplifted being were able to bring him down and bury him under a massive boulder. So, where does he rank on this list? Personally, to me, I am going to rank him an A rank antagonist. He's not S. He's not as superior as he thinks he is. Even though he is quite the superior being. What are the ground rules I need to make too, just so you're aware? I am not counting anything featured in Expanded Universe. So anything in novels, comics, video games, not considered. I wanted, because everybody's probably watched the shows, maybe not have read books, maybe not have read comics, maybe not played that one video game they're featured in. So I wanted to make sure that it was considered fair, and it's strictly set to TVs and movies. That's it. So Gary, being one of the first beings, or one of the first villains in Star Trek, he stands out, and played by Gary Lockwood does a fantastic job as raising the stakes. He also shows the depravity, the superiorness of himself as he gains his powers. You see, as his humanity gets cast off, how he's willing to just kill a friend that he knew for years, Lieutenant Kelso, and just kill him, and willing to kill Kirk, start his whole paradise in Delta Vega, but still just couldn't see past his own smugness. He is memorable, but unfortunately his impact is kind of left. It's just contained to this one episode. He's not really mentioned again except in Lower Decks, where he's briefly mentioned for having been affected by strange energies. So that's the one mention we get of Gary Mitchell. But he still left an impact on me personally, because he stands out as one of those villains that nearly killed Kirk, nearly got him. But as another omnipotent being to another, we segue into our next omnipotent being, Trelane, the Squire of Gothos. I love this episode because I can't think of the actor's name, so forgive me. He saw Earth through a telescope, essentially. Saw Earth in the 19th century by the time it got to him. And of course, humanity, the Enterprise arrives, 23rd century, and he is just this foppish man who's just enjoying. He is a gentleman to a point, but you notice little things here and there that aren't quite right, but you notice he has these abilities. He just starts kidnapping members of the crew, freezing them, summoning things, and we deduce that, it's from this mirror. There's a mechanism here giving him his powers. Destroy the mechanism. Nope. You've just angered him. And now he's using his abilities now rampant. Instead, like when the crew escapes, he starts swinging the planet right in front of him. It's quite daunting. Finally gets on a face-to-face or hand-to-hand battle with Kirk until we find out, he is a child. He is a child who has just been left to play with his toys and is now abusing his toys. So, yes, Trelane's a fun villain because he also laid the groundworks for Q. And to me, just for the impact he had on the franchise, in that without Trelane, I don't think we would have gotten Q. Excuse me. He's an S rank. Plus, also, his episode's just fun. He's fun, and he's not named specifically, but we're led to believe he also appears in Strange New Worlds, where again he toys with the lives of the Enterprise crew members, and a parent voiced by John Delancey comes in, scolds him, and undoes everything. And his name's not specifically said, but we're kind of led to believe that it is him. So again, his impact is there. S-rank villain. But from one flim-flam man to another. Harcourt Fenton Mudd. Okay, I'm just going to say it. I love Harcourt Fenton Mudd as a character, as a villain, antagonist. I don't really say he's a villain. He's out for gain, financial gain, and just he is proof that humanity, not all of humanity, is good-natured. He's out for himself. His first episode, he's trafficking women to be wives to minors. So judge that as you will. His second episode, he is in charge of, he has taken over or ruling over a planet of androids, and then tries to use the Enterprise to escape and leave the crew behind. Backfires, and he is then exiled with a bunch of android replicas of his wife that drive him insane. So, appears again in the animated series in one episode, and then he comes back in Star Trek Discovery, reprised by Rainn Wilson as a darker take on Harcourt Fenton Mudd, but still in a very fun way, and is probably in my favorite episode of Star Trek Discovery Season 1, where he takes over Discovery and essentially puts it in a time loop, and it's so fun. But his character and his episodes are memorable because he is such a fun character to watch, just to be an annoyance to Kirk, and they're comical. They're comical. The Rainn Wilson Harry Mudd is a little darker, which adds depth to Mudd that you kind of see in that first episode. We see him in with Mudd's women. And of course, he appears multiple times throughout the expanded media. Again, not counting it, but that shows the staying power of this character. So for all that, he's an S rank. I'm also going to point out right now, since we've got multiple people on the board, no one is getting shifted. They're literally just putting up in the bracket in order. That does not signify one is better than the other. I know I did that in past tier lists. I'm not doing it here because I'm already rambling quite a bit. And I feel like if I start justifying that, I don't know. They're S rank villains. There's no competing amongst these villains to me. They're there. Leave the discussion in the comment section. Moving right along to another impactful villain that has staying power. Governor Kor, the Dahar master himself, the first Klingon in Star Trek history. He came to be governor of Organia, took over the Organians, was annoyed because the Organians were peace-loving, they were pacifists, and he was setting up, he took over the planet to essentially stop the Federation expansion for a coming war that was, an oncoming war, until he was thwarted by the Organians, and when they imposed themselves and forced peace. He enjoyed and respected Kirk as an equal. When he realized Kirk would stand up to him, thinking he was still an Organian, he respected Kirk. He respected that Kirk wasn't going to lie down, standing up for himself. And it kind of gave us the cornerstone, the basis of what would be Klingon culture. In that when he remissed that there wasn't going to be a battle, he just smiled and said, it would have been glorious. We see him later in Deep Space Nine, 3 separate times where he's a drunken old man. He's kind of fallen out and he wants to redeem himself and ends up redeeming himself gloriously, as a Klingon should. So for me, as characters and antagonists go, Kor to me, just because of the staying power and the impact he had on the franchise, is an S rank. He's absolutely an S rank. Because without Kor, I don't think we would have had the Klingons as they were. If it might have been any other character, we don't know. But Kor laid the groundwork. He's an S rank. Speaking of firsts in the Star Trek history, we have the unnamed Romulan commander from Balance of Power. Balance of Terror. Terror. Oh, God. Yeah. Just roll with it, folks. Just roll with it. Beautifully played by Mark Leonard. He gave us the first look of the Romulans, and humans, the first look of Romulans. After 100 years ago, we fought a war with the Romulans, but we never saw them. When we realized they shared an ancestry with Vulcans, immediately, a lot of the crew kind of look at Spock, and suddenly we're, okay? Even Spock himself is kind of surprised. But he matches wits with Kirk, proves himself to be a very capable commander. He doesn't want war, but he will do his duty to the fullest, even if that means sacrificing himself and his ship for the greater good. He was defeated, self-destructed, went out honorably. I won't say he has the same impact as Kor, because Romulans we were supposed to believe they were sort of similar to a Roman culture, ancient Roman culture, with centurions and senators. We kind of heard that stuff. Praetor, we kind of heard those words and thought, okay, it's similar to Roman culture, but we never really got a grasp of it. But we saw through him what a Romulan commander was capable of. And to me, again, makes him an S rank, because where Kor and Kirk battled on the ground, Romulan commander and Kirk battled in space. And we got possibly one of the best episodes of the first season of the original series. And we showed that the Romulans were coming back into power, coming back in a big way, and trying to see the Federation's weaknesses. And Kirk was able to show them that Federation wasn't no slouches. Starfleet wasn't going to back down. So, Romulan commander, absolutely for the staying power and the staying power of the Romulans. S rank for me. Next, we have another first. Gorn Captain from Arena. I love Arena just because of the set pieces, the style, the set pieces of the episode, showing Kirk's ingenuity, showed what he would do on 1-to-1. Again, a lot of these 1-to-1 things, because, it's Kirk. He's got to be the hero. But you look at it from, even from today's standpoint, I still think the Gorn looks intimidating, even if it is a giant rubber suit. It still looks intimidating. It's still a very well done rubber suit. The Gorn commander, so his motivations. Humanity or Starfleet Federation set up a colony on Cestus 3. Celtless, a planet. Sorry, the name is slipping. Sets up a colony. Apparently, the planet was claimed by the Gorn. The Gorn saw that as an attack. Wipe out the colony. Kirk, now in a bid for vengeance, chases down the Gorn ship. Attracts the attention of another godlike being, the Metrons. And they're like, nope. Kirk, Gorn captain, whoosh, planet, fight. Victor stays alive. Victor, yeah, your species or your ship is gone. High stakes. So immediately Kirk starts to fight with his fists, realizes he can't overpower him, and then starts to run and try to figure out what he can do. The Gorn has a universal translator and talks to Kirk, realizing that he is intelligent. He's not just a brute. He's intelligent. And we start to kind of get an inside ahead, but at the same time, there's not a lot there. But we see that he is an intelligent character trying to do his duty. And then we don't see the Gorn again till Enterprise. Again, briefly, but we see it and he's fought. And then Strange New Worlds introduces the Gorn yet again. Broadens what a Gorn is from what we see here. And that's not it. From what the Gorn started out as to what Strange New World gave us, it's like, interesting. We're not commenting on what the Gorn are now. We're not. I'm focusing primarily on this Gorn commander. But as a character who literally is just hiss, literally how he communicates is just through hisses, except when he talks through the translator. Easby. He gives Kirk a good fight, but it's not that he's a good antagonist, a good villain. But there's not a lot we learn from him. There's not a lot of layers to him other than he is intelligent, he will kill, and that's it. So I mean, to me, he'd be which is good, just not great and not S tier. Finally, we move on to another one that stood out to me, Mirror Spock, another antagonist, not villain, antagonist in the Mirror episode. A bearded version of the Vulcan we all know and love. He comes across similar to Spock, but colder, which again, if Dr. McCoy was here, he'd probably say, how can you get colder than a Vulcan? Turns out you can. He is still, like, you still see the hints that, okay, they're pretty close together in character, but he is not afraid to threaten. He will kill. He has no problem with torture because of the environment he grew up in. I love his threat to Mirror Sulu in that if anything happens to me, I do have associates, and they too are Vulcans. Which again, he knows that he is stronger than humans. He knows the Vulcan people are stronger. Like, you can threaten me all you want, you won't make it off this ship alive, in a way. I'm gonna give him an A rank merely because, again, that episode had staying power for all the Mirror Universe shenanigans we got into throughout the franchise. This episode did lay the groundwork for that. He was critically injured in the episode. Dr. McCoy revived him. He mind melded with Dr. McCoy and then saw glimpses of where our heroes came from, sent them back. And then we find out that he took over the Empire, introduced reforms that weakened the Empire. So the Alliance came through, took over. We don't know if he was alive or dead. We don't know what happened to him, but he essentially turned good. So as an antagonist to Mirror, I do feel like he is a very good antagonist. Not S tier, but still very great. Plus, let's face it, he had staying power, and the bearded Spock is signifying evil, also has staying power. So A rank antagonist for me. Okay, now we are coming up on the movie antagonists, the original series movies antagonists. First up on our list is Voyager 6 probe that was lost in a black hole. Came out the other side to a planet of sentient machines that rebuilt Voyager. The Voyager 6 probe recognized it as a machine, similar machine, kindred spirit, as it were. Revived it. It gained sentience, remembered its programming to learn all that it was knowable, and returned to its creator. Headed back to Earth. Gained, like, either the machines gave it the massive ship that it was on, or V'ger constructed it. We don't know. Somehow also amassed this gaseous cloud barrier around it. And it's just anything in its path it tried to digitize and make copies into its large database, including a member of the Enterprise crew that it sent back as a probe to communicate. Did not recognize humanity or any other carbon-based life forms as real life. Instead, recognized them as infestations, to the point where it threatened Earth. It knew Earth as its point of origin, but saw that it had been infested with humanity and thought it was an infection, was willing to wipe out the infestation, until a human joined with it, realized, oh, I was created by it, and then ascended into a higher being. All that said, there's not a lot there. Because as Spock pointed out in the movie, it is a child. It knows all that it does, and that's it. It knows only what it knows. It has not been raised any better or not. It doesn't know what it doesn't know. It can't comprehend it. So for the singular purpose, the singular drive, and also for the fact that we have seen this before in an original series episode, The Changeling with Nomad, where very similar things happened. We'd seen it before. V'ger's a C rank. It's all right. He's all right, or it's all right. But I just, for the problems the motion picture have, and it, you know, to some people it does have problems. Its antagonist is, again, recycled. It feels recycled to me, and you don't get a sense of it. You get what Ilea tells you. His whole thing is that humanity is an infestation. Carbon units aren't real life forms, which, again, we've heard before. So it just doesn't. It's okay. It's fine. It's a plot device to me. It's not a D rank by any means. Just because it does pose a bit significant threat, and I'm led to believe that, or at the very least, we're led to believe that V'ger has ties to the Borg. So I do believe that if V'ger and the sentient machines hadn't been a thing, we wouldn't have the Borg. So good or bad reasons, there you go. Now, from one superior machine being to a superior human. I'm trying to segue these, okay, guys? Seriously, I'm trying to segue. Khan Noonien Singh. A leftover from the eugenics wars in whenever they happened. Again, like Terminator, that time seems to move. The needle moves. Introduced to us in the episode of Space Seed, where he is reawoken from cryogenic sleep, nearly takes over the Enterprise, is beaten by Kirk through strength, and then exiled to Ceti Alpha 5. Decades go by. Ceti Alpha 5 is laid waste, is discovered again by another Federation ship. Kirk Khan commandeers that ship, learns of that ship's mission to find a test site for the Genesis project, realizes the potential of this, attacks the Enterprise, severely damages it, but is driven off, and is defeated by Kirk through the events of Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan. He is Kirk's, I think, the mirror to Kirk in a way, in that he is confident. He has a strong intellect. He believes to be superior. We learn is not the case, because what is the saying? absolute power corrupts absolutely. As with all the augments, they believe themselves to be superior, and that turns out to be their downfall. But Wrath of Khan, we see a more vengeful Khan. His wife has died. Nobody has checked in on him, and he blames Kirk for all this. So now he is just on a mission to, as he takes the role of Captain Ahab, Kirk is his white whale, and we get these wonderful interactions through screen, the battle segment of the Mutara Nebula, where we realize again he is a man out of time. Where we think, well, he's a good fight, and he does put up a great fight, but Kirk still comes out on top. He's an S-rank villain. He is an S-rank villain because of there is still humanity there, but he wants to, like in Space Seed, we see the glimpses of we brought the world order. It was a chaotic time. We brought the world order. In his mind, again, the villain is the hero of their own story. And in Wrath of Khan, he doesn't care about that now. Like, he sees the potential for the Genesis device and what it can be used for, but he still wants his vengeance on Kirk. And that's his downfall. He lets vengeance get in the way of, like his first officer, his first says, you have Genesis, you can have whatever you want. He doesn't care. And he has staying power. He has staying power throughout the mythos too. So S rank for sure. Up next, following right up from Star Trek 2 into Star Trek 3, Commander Krug, beautifully played by Christopher Lloyd, a Klingon commander who learns of the Genesis device, learns of its potential, what it could be used for, realizes that this is a threat to the Klingon Empire, and wants to use it, or at least take it and make sure that they have it, the Federation has it, or that the Klingons have it, sorry. We get more in-depth look at the Klingons through Krug and Christopher Lloyd, in that we get the Klingon language, more of the Klingon language, more of the culture, in that what they're willing to do, in that when they approach for starters, he realizes his lover has seen the tapes of the Genesis device. He kills her because you know too much. Sorry, you got to go. Okay, he's covering his bases. Yikes, he's willing. He's got to cover his bases. They approach the Genesis planet, attack the USS Grissom. He wanted prisoners. His gunner goes, lucky shot, kills his gunner. He's like, and calls him an animal. And it's like, okay, so he did not want to needlessly kill, but he will kill when needed. Okay, there's layers there. And then when the Enterprise is disabled, he tasks his crew of 8 or 9, give or take, to board the Enterprise and take it, capture it, thinking that it's a crew of 200, if that, 400 by this point. And he's like, we are Klingons. We will fight through this ship, take them prisoner, and then plant our flag and take the knowledge we need from their own data banks. It's like they'll fight till the last man. And it's like, all right, okay. We get to see that the Klingons will fight regardless, whatever they have to do. And then the whole final battle with Kirk on the Genesis planet as it's exploding is just top notch. For that reason alone, I have to give him an S rank. Because again, I really feel like this movie and these Klingons helped further the mythos of the Klingon Empire and what they're capable of, what their culture was like. And I love Christopher Lloyd's portrayal as Krug, as a villain. It's great. Upon a recent rewatch of Star Trek 3, it made me realize how much I loved this villain. So yeah, Krug, S rank. Now on to Star Trek 5. Why not 4? Probe, I don't view as an antagonist because it is a mechanism. It is a probe. We know nothing where it came from. We know nothing of the people that sent it. All we know is that the probe wants to talk to whales. That's it. Wants to talk to whales. It disables vessels, electronics, as it approaches, starts vaporizing Earth's oceans, which, yeah, great, okay, yeah, that could be bad. Well, we don't know if that's its initial programming or if it's doing that by accident. We know nothing of that probe. So for me to try to qualify that as an antagonist, as a villain, it's just a mechanism. There's nothing I can gauge it on other than its actions, which it could be programmed for, it could not be programmed. It could all be accident. We don't know. So it does not, to me, qualify to meet this list. So we jump to Star Trek V, Final Frontier, with the Vulcan Sybok, Spock's half-brother. I love Sybok. I love that this was a Vulcan, that we meet him. He's smiling. He is on a quest to find God, which is like, okay. He has emotions. He's not afraid to show them. And he heals people's pain, which we don't know what that means. But he's starting to like bring members of the crew onto his side. But we don't see fully what he's doing until he shows Spock and McCoy, which the McCoy scene where he has McCoy, shows him his pain, hugs him, embraces him, and said, this pain has poisoned your soul. To me, that is such a powerful scene on what he's doing. To me, he wants to prove people wrong, that there is God at the center of the galaxy. That if he hadn't like Spock or Sybok tweaked, could be such a wonderful good guy. But the fact that he's healing people to further his goal to reach the center of the galaxy, to prove that there is a God, there is a being there, and people are afraid and shouldn't be. I love the character. He's an A rank for sure. I don't say he's S rank just because he's not quite con level. He's not quite core level. He's not quite there. Because I don't see him as a villain. He is an antagonist for sure. When they get there to Shakari, they're talking to God, and he realizes that, oh my God, I have been misled. It is a trick. He sacrifices himself. And to me, he essentially redeems himself. To me, like, he absolutely is a good person at heart. He was just misguided. So he is an A rank. S rank, I do think these people are villains, 100%. A rank, there can be redemption there. There's like they're antagonists, but I wouldn't exactly. You get what I'm saying, I hope. But anyway, Sybok, I hope we see more of him in Strange New Worlds. He was hinted at. I hope we get a little bit more of Sybok in Strange New Worlds season 4. The secondary antagonist of Star Trek V, God. What does God need with a starship? A being imprisoned in the center of the galaxy behind the Great Barrier, and we're led to believe he is the Almighty. It turns out, no, he's not. He's literally just some being who was imprisoned there, is taken out with 2 photon torpedoes, one by the Enterprise, one by the Klingon bird of prey. So much for being all powerful, huh? Yeah, he's a D rank. I'm sorry. He's a D rank. He's at the end of the movie. We're led to believe he's the Almighty, and it's just like, yeah, like it doesn't take long at all for everyone to realize he's not all what we thought you're what does God need with a starship? What does God need with a starship? So yeah. D rank. Yeah. Completely forgotten by the end of the movie, and we move on. Finally, the Star Trek VI antagonists. First up with our first Badmiral antagonist, Admiral Cartwright, who we meet in Star Trek IV, who is taking charge of the damage control in Starfleet Command during the whale probe incident. And then finally, we see him in Star Trek VI, where he is revealed to be anti-Klingon, is how I'll put it. He's anti-Klingon. And that he protests against the peace talks, allowing Klingon refugees into Federation space, saying that we should let the Klingons run out of supplies, wait till they're in a weaker position. That way we have our boots on them and we are in a stronger bargaining power. Says they'll be the trash of the galaxy, and eventually starts forming the conspiracy to undo the peace talks. that puts the crew of the Enterprise at risk. Again, the movie came out in 91, and I think we'd already had, by Next Gen, we already had a couple Badmirals at this point. But timeline-wise, he was one of our firsts. Original series really didn't give us too many Badmirals in Starfleet. A couple crazed Starfleet crew members, but not too many. He was probably the first, and I know Gene Roddenberry was not a fan of that, but to me, this kind of set the stone for Badmirals, the Star Trek trope of Badmirals. He's S rank for sure. To show that he was, again, one of those characters that just didn't want things to change, keep the status quo, and was willing to sacrifice Kirk, McCoy, leave him there at Rua Pente, and then assassinate his own president. He didn't care who he hurt. Didn't care. So a lot of people have now believed that he was part of Section 31, which, again, we'll get into when we get to those characters. Which is entirely possible. Could it be a subset of Starfleet intelligence? We don't know. But yeah, Cartwright is absolutely an S rank, along with his Klingon counterpart, the Shakespearean General Chang, played by Christopher Plummer. I love Chang. I love how he just quotes Shakespeare, which, again, the fact that the Klingons have an equivalent of Shakespeare, or at the very least, somehow got into an exchange with the Federation, picked up Shakespeare, and was like, okay. And how he just, the final battle on that, with the Cloaked Bird of Prey and the Enterprise and then the Excelsior, is, I love that whole movie, but that whole thing, he's just spouting Shakespeare. McCoy, God, I'd give real money if he'd shut up. It's just, I love him because, again, like Cartwright, he didn't want things to change, but he believed the Klingons should not beg for help. They should, we will rise above. We will be fine. And it turns out to be his undoing. So, yeah, he is absolutely an S rank villain. He gave the Enterprise a good pounding out of his bird of prey, and like that last to be or not was genuinely just like he knew. So yeah, this wraps up the original series tier list. Again, we're now coming up on 40 minutes as of this recording, so I'm gonna stop here. Like I said, I ramble, and as you can see, the next gen list, it takes up that full layer. Takes up this full layer and down here. So yeah, that's probably going to be another episode. That wasn't how I intended it, but that's how it's shaping out. So folks, I hope you appreciate, or hope you like this video. Appreciate it. As I got paid to do this, so if you don't appreciate it, that's fine. But I hope you liked it. I hope you find it engaging. If you did, please, in the comments, go ahead, give me your personal thoughts, but please do try to keep it civil. I'm not trying to stir any arguments. These are just my personal opinions and takes. And again, I was paid by my friends to do this, so here I am. If you like the video, please leave a like. And if you want to see the next part of this list, the next gen villains, hit subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when I upload it next. So, folks, hope to see you next time. As we say at the end of every video here, I will see you next cycle. This is Zayun, out.